the theme of this whole event is media literacy, and Natasha is holding us to that. She asked us early on, so I want to get to her question, and I'm going to throw it to Michelle and then back to you, Judy. The question is, I feel like we planted her, but we didn't. She asked, she wanted to hear both of you how you understand media literacy, and then what role both you and Michelle think media literacy should play in our society. So Michelle and then Judy, would love to hear both your takes on that.
Well, I think I might even know the Natasha that asked that question, but and she knows me well, so I can say I think that media literacy is the most important thing. It's not surprising. I run an organization to advance media literacy education around the globe, and media literacy, it expands to, it kind of encompasses everything that we care about. And no matter what it is you care about, whether you are passionate about sports or passionate about politics or passionate about the arts, you are being affected by the media around you, right? Media impact all of us all the time. It doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. This is actually the one thing that could possibly bring us all together, is the fact that we are all influenced by media messages all day long, every single day. So media literacy education should be an absolute national priority. There should be no question about it. And I have to say that one of the most disappointing parts of just the recent debates and conversations about our country is that we're not talking about education hardly at all. And it is so vital. And I think that if we don't make it a national priority, it's going to be hard. It's malpractice. It's like we have to be doing better.
And I was going to say, just as a tangential remark, that it's one of the things we are absolutely committed to at the NewsHour, because we've done a series of reports, and frankly, we can't do enough on the struggles that parents, teachers, educators across the country are having right now in this just unprecedented time with the pandemic and the questions of health and safety of children and educators and parents trying to juggle it all. So we're trying to do a lot of reporting on that and the broader education questions around funding and so forth. But I'll just be very straightforward on media literacy. To me, there's nothing more important in that basket, if you will, than making sure our children grow up able to distinguish between information they can trust and information that they can't trust. And whatever you can do, we can do as you can do as educators, what we can do as journalists to help them see the difference, to become discerning consumers of information, to know that if you go to this source, you can generally rely on it, still be questioning, still be skeptical, nothing wrong with that, always ask the question. Whereas there are other sources that you really need to be careful about. And it's to me, it's just a part of the process of learning, of growing up, of figuring out, what in the world, who should you generally trust and who not. And it's something, we all learn as people. But in terms of the information that's so essential to make decisions as citizens, as parents, as employees, people co-workers, colleagues, we need that kind of information. It's absolutely essential.
I agree. And I think it starts the minute that children can read, right? And another question related to this comes from Mary, and it connects because she asked, Mary Patton, I'm not sure from where, but thanks for this question, Mary. What strategies are most important to help students to practice viewing news and evidence objectively and not through the lens of political bias? And really also just basically this question is about what are the best practices in helping our students read the news and find bias, which is something that I struggle with too. And I'm a veteran teacher, probably like Mary.
Is that for Michelle? Or?
That's from Michelle. This is either one of you. Maybe both, if you don't mind. Michelle, can you answer that, and then we'll get Judy?
Sure. So I think that it is interesting. I feel like we talk a lot about bias, so I'm going to kind of harp on that part of that question. We talk about it. We talk a lot about political bias in the news, and I think we talk about bias as if all of it is a incredibly dangerous 4-letter word. And what we need to recognize is that all media messages are biased. They're all, and there's a spectrum of bias, and bias is just, it can be perspective and it can be point of view. All media messages, all of them have a point of view. They're constructed by human beings that make choices. And just like Judy was saying, like the NewsHour makes conscious choices about who to hire, who to cut, all of that. So those choices, lead to really interesting decisions. But that's a choice that the NewsHour is making, right? Like another place is going to make different choices. So you're going to get a different type of news. And then you need to decide what is best for the way that you want to watch the news or the things that you want to understand. So I think it's really important to make sure students understand that the question is never, is this bias? It's recognizing what is the bias? How does that help? How does that affect the way the story is told? It doesn't, and bias doesn't, just because it's biased doesn't mean it isn't reliable, it isn't truthful, all of that. That's how I always start with that idea of that. You never want to ask, is this bias? Like, it's all bias.